Hello, everyone. Welcome to Eye Care with Dr. Bartles. This is a brand new series of 6 shows which will be very informational for you from birth right up until us seniors. And a lot of problems occur then. And we're going to find out what we can do about all of them along the way. So I am your host, Noreen Zarell, and to my right is Dr. Tad Bartles. And welcome, Tad.
Noreen, thank you so much for letting me come on again. I always enjoy myself here.
And we always do a great job learning about things that the normal person wouldn't unless there was a problem.
Well, let's hope we can continue that.
Okay, so let's start from the beginning.
Okay. As an eye care practitioner, I've always felt it's my job to take care of my patients probably from, we'll say, birth until later in life. Really, we take care of people's eyes for as long as they need them. Okay, so what I felt we would do is take a ride. Think of the average life expectancy in the United States now, probably around 80 years. I like round numbers, so we'll use 80 years. So from birth to 80, it's a pretty interesting ride with how the eyes progress, and we're going to cover that as best we possibly can. So we're going to start out with a newborn.
Okay.
Okay, because this is the best way to do it. Okay, when a child is born, the eyes are working. He or she has, we'll call it poor vision, but we know the eyes work because the reflexes are there. Okay, so if you've ever watched doctors' programs on network TV, although I can't imagine why someone would watch network TV when we can watch Nutmeg TV, but you'll see that they're always, the paramedics and all that are taking a pen light out and they're shining at somebody's eyes. Well, we call that the pupillary reflex, and what that means is that when light hits the pupil will get smaller. And so we know that this happens in a newborn. Also, there's what is called the blink reflex, where if something is brought up very quickly to someone's face, automatically the eyes close. That is an ingrown protective mechanism to protect the eyes. In case some object is coming up there, close the eyes, maybe we can protect them from serious injury. So between birth and the first year, this child undergoes some massive, massive changes in development. And we like to think that as the visual system develops, the rest of the body develops because of the visual system.
Is it true that all babies are born with blue eyes?
Pretty much. Okay, and a lot of times parents of newborns will say, wow, my child has blue eyes now. Is that going to stay that way? And everybody keeps their fingers crossed, I guess, to hope that that does continue. But usually between 4 months and 6 months, if there's going to be a changeover to brown, that's when it's going to start happening.
Okay, how about if it were to change to green?
Well, now we're going to get into a very gray area.
Okay.
My philosophy, and I get a lot of arguments over this, but there are 2 colors of eyes. There's blue eyes and there's brown eyes. Okay, and the darkening from blue is governed by the amount of melanin, which is a pigment in the eye. Okay, the more melanin there is, the darker the color of the eye.
So that could be why it could look green for some people.
And when you look under the microscope at a green eye, sometimes you will see that it's a combination of blue patches and brown patches that form the illusion of green. But I like to say blue and brown.
Blue and brown. Okay.
So what do you think is important for a child to see as a newborn, as an infant?
Probably their surroundings so that they can relate to the people that are going to be involved in their lives.
Well, pretty much everything is important because we have to stimulate vision. Okay, but as a newborn progresses to maybe about a month, they're pretty good at recognizing faces. Their vision is maybe 8 to 10 inches away, okay, which is good because mom and dad are going to be holding the baby
Right.
at that, at that distance. And
Anything after that is kind of fuzzy?
yes, okay,
Yeah.
they can recognize bright lights. They can maybe see colors, okay, but color vision doesn't usually develop until a few months later.
Okay.
But it's recommended that we stimulate
Okay.
the child's eyes. So what that
That's
means
why
is
all the
in
bright
in the
colors.
crib, you have a mobile hanging. You may have bright colored walls in the nursery, posters, okay, things to stimulate a child's vision. Okay, so let's talk about how sight develops, how vision develops. Okay, we know that about 20 days after conception, there is the very beginnings of eyes in the fetus.
Oh.
And by we'll say the 28 to 30 week mark of pregnancy, the eyes are pretty much functional. Okay, so when a baby is born, the baby is seeing. Like we said, we can prove that through reflexes.
That's interesting.
But let's talk about why a child has to move in order to develop. Okay, so we said that when they're born, and maybe a month later, we have vision out to about here, so we can recognize the caregivers' faces.
Yep.
Okay. They may be attracted by bright lights at that time. By the time they hit 2 months, though, the eyes are starting to move around a little bit. Okay, and they may remember faces. Okay, we got to understand that for all of us, okay, vision is learned by trial and error. Okay, none of us came with an instruction manual.
No.
Okay, our parents didn't get to read an instruction manual, neither did we as babies. Okay, so we have to play with our eyes, we have to learn what works and what doesn't. And in the course of learning this by trial and error, most of us get it right. Okay, but there are a number of us that don't get it right. Okay, and these are the ones that we have to pick up really quickly and do the best to get them to work
Yep.
right, because if your vision is not working well, then you're going to be behind academically, but possibly also socially and definitely athletically.
Yeah.
Okay, and in this day and age, all those three things are very, very important.
Yeah.
So by 3 months, a child is going to look at something in his hand.
They'll be
Okay.
able to choose, and probably would go for a brighter color object.
Something that is more interesting than
Yep.
not.
Yeah.
Okay, but at this point, one of the things that, much to the chagrin of grandparents and parents, children like to use their mouth as their chief investigative tool. Okay, so they may hold something in the hand, but this is better.
Goes in the mouth,
This is
yep.
better. So by age 4 months, the eyes are starting to move a little independently of the head. Before that, if there was a noise or a light over here, head and eyes turn together. Now, maybe they'll be looking at one person and hear something and just turn their eyes over. Okay, they are now starting to visually inspect objects. And this is a time where we have to encourage these children to reach out beyond the crib. Okay, so in other words, we got to have more interesting things out there. Okay,
To stimulate.
by 5 months, we may be developed enough that we can take an object in our hand and watch it as it comes to the mouth to be investigated. Okay, so what is happening is vision and now also gross motor development is going hand in hand. Okay, and as the children are realizing there is something outside of the crib, okay, or outside of my space, they have to start figuring out, well, how am I going to get to it?
So this is when the crawling and the rolling
that starts coming in because
Yeah.
now we have to,
Comes into
okay,
play.
how are we going to get over to this? And so with gross motor development, now the eyes want something It's up to the body to learn how to get it. And so there may be rolling over. Okay, rolling over a couple of times increases the child's world. When he finds something a little more interesting, the rolling is not going to allow him to investigate. Then maybe they'll be developing some scooching, okay, and shuffling around a little bit. And again, that gets to the object so we can pick it up and investigate it with the mouth. Okay. At that time, around 6 months, we kind of encourage parents to start to introduce squeaky toys, because then again, that will
Sound
attracts. Okay,
Yep.
so we have visually stimulating and now audially stimulating. Okay, makes for more development.
Yeah.
By 7 months, functions like taking the eyes and making them move more together are starting to be improved upon. And the child may be able to pick an object, lift it up, inspect it, sometimes with the eyes, most of the time with the mouth still. Okay, but they're sitting up and they're starting to creep. Okay, at 8 months, definitely, this child is aware that there's something outside of his reach and he has to get to it. And so crawling begins. Okay, and crawling is a very important stage of development for all parts of the body, but then it becomes very efficient for him to get around, to pick up the object that he wants to investigate. And at 8 months also, what we'll find is child may be studying their hands, studying a toy, studying their bottle, okay, because now vision is developing to the point where they're thinking about it.
Actual movement,
Motor development go hand in hand.
yeah, can start together. Okay.
Now, at around 10 months, what we find is that as the muscles in the body are developing, we can get the head up, we can start looking around, and they make this discovery that drives parents crazy, is that there are vertical surfaces, and vertical surfaces become very intriguing. So now we have the child saying, okay, now I got to get up there. And how am I going to do that? And eventually they figure out that standing, okay, is another efficient way of getting a hold of something. So as the muscles get stronger, we can start to pull ourselves up, stand with assistance. Okay, by 12 months, we have mastered vertical orientation, and you can start to walk with assistance. The eyes at this time are developing to a point where actually they can move and track a little bit. So we call those visual pursuits. Okay, and now we're going to fast forward because we've been going by month by month by month, but between 1 year and 2 years, okay, we have a child who can run pretty much without falling most of the time.
Well,
Okay, but they will study small objects much more intently. Okay, by 3 years, we're starting to develop hand-eye coordination. Okay, maybe they can color within the lines. Okay, and we have spatial orientation. Okay, at 4 years, we're starting to use the eyes as a team. Okay, there's much more expanded motor development, and what we call accommodation improves. Now, what the function of accommodation means is that we can change our focus from far to close. Okay, and again, like I said before, this is all learned through experience, and it just doesn't happen. You don't start off with this. This is developed. By 5 years old, okay, we have pretty good control of body activity. Okay, hand-eye coordination is getting refined.
they're very good at taking something and mine.
Yes.
Backing up a little bit, if parents have any questions or concerns about their child's eyes and development, what's the earliest that they would take them in for an eye exam where you would be able to detect something?
Well, different people were going to give you different answers on that. Okay, let me go and let's talk about this program that we participate in that's called Infancy. Okay, and I think this is a very, very important program. Not too many people know about it. Okay, although probably maybe more people than I like to believe know about it. quite a few years ago, the American Optometric Association decided that we really need to make a concerted effort to improve children's vision. And the reason for that is statistics were showing us that although 80% of learning occurs through the eyes at younger ages, nobody really paid much attention to children's vision. And we've also discovered that somewhere between 1 in 4 and 1 in 5 children have some sort of a visual issue that may affect learning. So that's a pretty high percentage.
That is.
Okay, so they developed this program called Infancy. Nice catchy phrase. But Infancy providers, and I have to say that I am one of them, okay, what we offer is a visual screening to parents. They can bring in a child between ages 6 months and 12 months, and we will provide a screening at no charge to them. This is a public service. Okay, personally, after doing this for quite a few years now, I've developed a level of comfort with about 10 months old. Okay, where we can do children younger than that, but at 10 months, we have our ways. Okay, so what we really say to parents is, if you think there's an issue, we can help. And there's no age limit on that. We don't discriminate at any ages. Another thing that I always say to parents when they ask me, well, what should I be doing here? What should I be concerned about? We always ask them, is the maternal grandmother around? Okay?
Oh.
And if the maternal grandmother has an issue with the child's eyes, there's an issue with the child's eyes. We always say that.
Oh,
So, we rely on Dr. Grandma.
Dr. Grandma. Okay.
So a lot of people will say, okay, this child can't talk to you. They can't read the eye chart. What do you do with them? All right, so let's talk real quickly about what we do for a infant who's brought into the office for an infancy screening.
Okay.
Okay, now the things that I like to look for, okay, first of all, do the eyes look straight?
Oh,
Okay,
really?
that's real important to me. Do the eyes look straight? Okay, if an eye is turning, okay, then that can be a muscle balance issue. Okay, it could be an indication of extreme visual problems, okay, that can be corrected with glasses. Okay, but a lot of times, remember what I said, kids are experimenting.
Right.
Okay, this is learned by trial and error, and if we don't get it right, we had better act upon it. So I like to see whether a child's eyes are straight. Okay, very simple, you look at them. Okay. Another thing we like to do is determine that both eyes are about the same power. Okay, this is called refraction.
Okay.
Okay, so both eyes take roughly about the same prescription. Okay, because if there is one that's farther off than the other one, then again,
Then there's a problem.
that's a potential for a problem.
Yep.
Okay, so the way we do that, the way I like to do that is when I do an infancy screening, we have an assistant. Okay, and the assistant's job is to be interesting to the child. And so what that means is that we will have props, we have some
Yep.
toys. Okay, we have a box of toys in my exam room. Some of them are mechanical, some are flashy lights, some are squeaky toys. Okay,
Anything to get their interest.
because the key to all of this is we have to know where the child is looking, or make a decent assumption about where the child is looking. Okay, if I think the child is looking at 15 feet away and the child is looking 6 inches away, we're going to get some wrong answers. So this is why I incorporated an assistant. Her job is to appear more interesting than me to the child. Okay, so we have her stand pretty far away and make noise, talk, flashy lights
Engage
and all
the
that.
child.
Yeah, and then
Yep.
we will quickly determine what power the eye is. Now, we don't do that with the
Okay.
phoropter, which is the big thing that we put over people's faces. We use handheld lenses because we don't want to scar this child for life right away.
They'll never come back.
And the other thing is, when we have a 10-month-old child for an exam, okay, sometimes with adults the same thing happens. You have a window of opportunity where when the child closes this window, the examination is over, and you're not going to get it open again at that time. So we have to work fast, and we jump around and do this. But then we also have to determine whether or not the eyes are healthy. And that means we have to look inside, either by using an eye drop to dilate the eye or look in as quickly as we can, catch a glimpse of what is going on in the back of the eye. And after a while, if you look at enough of them, you have an idea of what looks healthy, what doesn't look healthy. And so this is what we determine. This is how we determine whether a child is in good shape or not through the infancy program. Now, if we decide that there is an issue, then we can talk to the parent and say, okay, maybe we find the child is a little bit farsighted. Okay, bring them back when they're 3 years old. They will have developed more. We can get a better idea of what is going on with them and make recommendations. Because the whole thing is we need to have those eyes seeing, and they have to be seeing correctly.
Right, because as the child develops and continues and eventually goes to school, that's where you're going to have more problems if it can't be corrected when there's something first diagnosed.
That's true.
Yeah.
Because remember, in the early grades, 80% of what is learned comes through the eyes.
Comes through the eyes, yeah. Very interesting, 10 months old, and you can determine different things if there's a potential problem.
Mm-hmm.
That's interesting. We are coming up to almost being out of time.
Well, our next episode will discuss getting a child ready for school.
Okay. And then maybe we'll finish up. I think I can hold off a couple of questions for the next segment. We can finish up on infancy and then go on to getting them ready for school. So thank you for joining us this evening, and stay tuned for part 2. Good night.